Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm Carolyn Gorse, the Director of Development for Compass Affordable Housing, and this is your Compass Ecosystem Podcast. Today, we are excited to have a very special guest with us, Anne Miskey. And before we go into talking with Anne today, I just want to again thank everyone for tuning in and review that the purpose of the Compass Ecosystem podcast is to inform, engage, and connect the Southern Arizona community in a dialogue about human development and our ecosystem. Our major sponsor for today's first segment is Tucson Electric Power, and we want to thank them for sponsoring this segment. With me today is my fantastic co-host, Lydia Aranda with Rainmakers.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Lydia.
Nice to see everybody. Carolyn, hello. And Anne, it's nice to have you with us today.
Wonderful to be here, ladies.
So, as I mentioned, Anne, we're so thrilled to have you with us today. And I'd like to kick off today's conversation just having you describe some of the work that you've done, the issues that you've addressed, the audiences you've worked with, some of the services and outcomes that you have seen happen.
Wonderful. Well, again, it's such a pleasure and an honor to be here today, Carolyn and Lydia. Thank you so much. So I have worked for about 20 years working around community, the idea of building healthy communities for all people. For about the last 15 years, I've specifically focused on the issue of housing, homelessness, and services for our most vulnerable populations. I started my work really nationally, working with funders, both private and government funders. Did a lot of work around policy, worked very closely with the federal government, not for the federal government, with them. Areas specifically to do a lot around youth homelessness, around our veterans. I worked with the Joining Forces campaign with the federal government around veteran homelessness. I also specialized in women's homelessness. So these were some of the issues. Then I had a personal experience. I was walking to work one day, this was on the East Coast, and a gentleman stopped in front of me and he put out his hand and he said, "Help the homeless." And of course, I didn't say it, but in my mind, I went, that's what I do for a living. And yet I could do my entire job and never actually speak to someone experiencing homelessness. I was working at the 60,000-foot level. And there was something in me that felt, how can I do this work legitimately and not listen to people who are actually experiencing this? Well, it was fortuitous, I guess, that very shortly thereafter I got contacted by someone in LA working at the Downtown Women's Center saying, we're looking for a new chief executive officer. So after considering it with my family, we decided we would move to LA. So I always laugh and say I went from the halls of Congress to the streets of Skid Row. But it was such a powerful experience because I really got to see what people were experiencing, why they were experiencing homelessness, what was happening in their lives, what was happening, probably more importantly, with policies, with the system that was actually driving people into housing insecurity and homelessness. And it gave me a very different look, sort of marrying that policy with people's experience on the ground. So I have become a passionate advocate around the issue of housing, around the issue of homelessness, and especially about how we as communities respond to this crisis. What we can do as community members, as citizens, as fellow human beings to really end this crisis that we have, not just in this country, but it's starting to happen all over the world, sadly. And again, really focus on what are the true solutions that build our communities, that benefit all of us, not just the poor and the vulnerable, but that we make better communities for all of us. So that has been my career path. I ended up in Tucson because long family history here. I was born here. I've always loved Tucson, always loved the desert. My parents graduated from Tucson High. My dad's a U of A grad. So my husband and I, when we decided to retire, came here to Tucson, and so that's why I'm here now.
First of all, I'd love to commend you, Anne, for the pathway, the journey that you've taken in the many facets of serving community, from policy to engagement at international levels, to getting right down to the very minuscule points right in the field, as you said, from the halls of Congress right to the sidewalks of Skid Row and everywhere in between. It seems to me that that journey has been able to inform you on how to tackle very big issues or issues that are common in many communities, but be able to then hone in on what do I do here in this community. I have to imagine that's been daunting at times. And how have you really tackled being able to funnel down?
That's an excellent question because sometimes it's easier to deal when you're up at that policy level than when you're literally dealing with the people in your community. We experienced, a lot of what we often call NIMBYism, not in my neighborhood, with local community members. And what I saw was a lot of headbutting happening. People saying, you need to be doing this, you shouldn't do this. And I remember sitting back at one point and going, this isn't working. This isn't working. We have to do something differently. So I started a whole, I won't say program, but kind of a philosophy of how we better engage community. And maybe I can give you an example. We had two large encampments right down the main street of the community where I actually lived, but it was also part of my service area. I approached the local elected official to say, let's figure this out. And what we did is rather than just telling the community, okay, this is what's going to happen, we literally went door to door. We actually spoke to community members who lived around these encampments. And we said, okay, we want to get rid of these encampments, but in a way that supports the people living there. We gave them all a sheet of paper with a phone number. Say, if you have any concerns or problems, you're going to get a live person if you call us. Then we managed to get two hotels. We got everybody inside. We engaged the community. We engaged the police. We engaged detractors who, when they saw what we were doing, had changed their mind. So they were all, come on, I was against this, but now I'm for it. We got rid of two encampments without any backlash, without any fights. The police were not there. They weren't called. People moved in. We got over 100 people off the streets in 4 days successfully. The result, the community was thrilled, but we engaged them first. We talked to them. We made sure they had a place to get in touch with us. And so that is something that I believe we need to do a better job is how do we talk to people? How do we make them understand? You're always going to have a few that are going to be naysayers, but if the majority go, you know what, this is a good thing, it works really well. So that's been kind of the philosophy of how I've worked is let's talk to people, let's engage with people, and sometimes let's educate people because there are so many misperceptions out there about people experiencing homelessness. So that's kind of the way I've gone into this field.
I love
That
it.
is just so holistic as well as specific that it really gives a great idea to what stakeholders can do when they come together.
Yeah. And it did, there were moments that were tricky, but again, we persevered and it worked.
That is, and the engaging community, such a very basic idea and yet so often overlooked. I think that's what a foundational piece in creating that the first step into creating a ecosystem of support.
It's important that Tucson Electric Power partner with agencies like Compass Affordable Housing to ensure the members of our community have access to the resources that they need. We understand that we're operating in an affordability crisis, and this is not something that can be solved alone. Together, we can achieve so much more.
This next segment is supported by Pima County Short-Term Crisis Emergency Resources Grant. And thank you so much for really drawing a picture of how to get from big, audacious, hairy, and sometimes they're not even goals. They are tasks or challenges or issues at hand, and how we might whittle them down with very practical doable steps when we really think about the community that's right in front of us. And with that, I'm wondering how now in the different communities that you've lived, big metropolitan areas, other perhaps rural or smaller communities, now that you are here in Southern Arizona and very much engaged with community, how might you suggest that some of these issues take a lesson from that kind of a model, uh, but apply to maybe the nuancial differences that are happening with NIMBY, with homelessness, with maybe other resources that don't only have to do with homelessness, but maybe determinants of health and such. How might these specific issues benefit from a model approach like that?
Well, I think, one of the things I've learned in my time working in this issue is that every community is different and every community is exactly the same. So there are nuances, there are differences, but ultimately, what we see in communities across this country is this growing divide between people who have and people who have not. And I think what it's important to remember is that's not good for anybody. Even if you're one of the lucky ones that has more, you're then living in a community that has this divide. So one of the things I love, I want to sort of move back to Tucson. One of the things I love about Tucson since I've been here is this is a community and you can feel it. You can feel this sense of community and people wanting to do something about the community. So I would say the first thing I would suggest for people locally is to learn. Again, there are so many misperceptions out there about people experiencing homelessness. Everybody's a drug addict. Everybody chooses to live on the streets. These are the kinds of myths that are really harmful. So, the more people can watch podcasts like this, the more they can learn about the issue. Volunteer, get out there, get to meet people who are dealing with these things, sort of vulnerable populations. I remember inviting my board to one of our shelters, and they'd been used to serving meals. And I said, no, no, you're not going to be serving a meal today. You're actually going to be sitting down at the table and eating lunch with people living in the shelter. The reaction afterward was, oh my gosh, this person I talked to was just like me. And we're going, exactly. Exactly. They're another human being who's, had issues, that their lives have maybe crumbled, but their mothers, their fathers, their children, they're these things. So learn, volunteer, get to know people, get to understand the issue. And then finally, what can you do about it as a citizen? You can use your power to vote for policies. You can talk to your elected officials. You can say yes to services in your community. Say yes to housing because people need a home to be stable. There are so many things you can do. Some of them take less effort, some more. What we have seen throughout the country is the moment people jump in and get involved and learn, it changes how they react and it makes them fierce advocates for those who are the most vulnerable in our communities.
That is so true, Anne. And you know, I love the fact that you are bringing in the how we are going to solve the issue of homelessness, but it's kind of the lagging indicator, right? There's so many things that happen in a person's journey before it's not like they just wake up one day and say, I think I'll be homeless today.
Right.
And how people can get involved to be part of the solution so that they are realizing this person that I'm helping is just like me.
Yeah.
That's so important.
I was just going to say it's really putting the spotlight on the human part of human development ecosystem, which is really what Compass Affordable Housing and so many of the stakeholders are talking about. That housing is a situation. The human beings involved in it, whether they are the ones experiencing or they are the ones offering assistance and help and guidance, that's the human part, and that's what we all have in common.
Yeah. What you said is just so true. And I'd love for you to just dig a little deeper on how our people here in Tucson and Southern Arizona can become part of the human development ecosystem.
You know, I always say, no pun intended, that housing is the foundation for a healthy life. And I think what people don't realize is, people who are pushing, oh no, they need to go into treatment centers, they need to do this. Until you are stable, until you feel that sense of safety, you can't deal with everything else. I mean, all of us have issues that we deal with, right? Can you imagine, struggling with whatever it is, could be a caffeine addiction. I don't care. If you don't know where you're going to sleep that night, you don't know whether you're going to be attacked or if you're a woman sexually assaulted because you're on the street. Stability is essential for human beings, that feeling of safety. And then once you have that, then those services become so important. And I love what Compass Affordable Housing is doing in their focus on the breadth of humanity. We need all of those things. We need those things to be healthy and to grow. And as a community, we can make sure that everybody has that opportunity.
And thank you so much. You are so right. We're going to take another quick break and hear from our sponsors at Tucson Osteopathic Medical Foundation.
Annually, we give to local organizations who are running programs and making great strides in what we call the social determinants of health. It's incredible the work that they're doing, and we're just really proud to be a part of it.
And we want to again thank our major sponsor of this podcast, Tucson Electric Power. And I really appreciate all the information that you've shared, not only based on industry knowledge and service provider, but truly your experience in the field and with other solutions providers in many other communities, as well as here in Southern Arizona. Having talked about how folks can participate if they are in need, I wonder if we might find out more for folks, organizations, or other groups who may want you to participate with them, how they might come to you with some of those ideas and invitations.
I'm really obviously passionate about this issue and really also want to support our community of Tucson. So I am happy to do all that I can do to help and support this issue. I presently do sit on a city commission on affordable housing and development. I'm not speaking on their behalf today. I want to make that clear. I'm speaking as a private citizen, but I'm really honored to be part of the commission and to see the incredible work that the city is doing, often with a lot of barriers. And, we're seeing the world kind of on fire right now. But also just volunteering. And, I love volunteering on the ground, working with people who are experiencing some of these things, as well as at board level or other policy levels. So I'm open to anything. I always feel that I can continue to learn more, listen, learn, and then do what I can do as a community member in Tucson. And I really call on others in our community to join with me, to join with Compass Affordable Housing, with other wonderful agencies in this community to really help our friends, our neighbors, our community members.
Thank you. That's so valuable. And being able to encourage people to continue to participate. And if they don't know what they don't know, which is human nature, hopefully the engagement with folks like you, with the team at Compass Affordable Housing and others, can help inform and encourage folks to get involved in their own journey or others' journey as they develop further.
So well said, Lydia. And I would love, just as we close out this podcast, quick question for you. If you could ask the community to do one thing in your experience working in the housing insecurity and homeless industry, what is one positive thing that you would ask our Tucson community to do?
Get in touch with one of the amazing agencies that's working in this field. And again, I think Compass Affordable Housing is a great example. And just find out what they can do to help and support this amazing work, whether it's simply talking to someone experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity, or get out there and volunteer. I think putting yourself close to the situation, you learn, but it pulls on your heart to really help our neighbors at this time.
And they are our neighbors at the end of the day. We're all, I'm just going to quote Mr. Fred Rogers, personal hero of mine, welcome to my neighborhood. Won't you be my neighbor? Thank you so much for being here today. Lydia, thank you for co-hosting, being a part of this. We are looking forward to many more conversations. We invite you to learn more about the work that is happening right here in our community by visiting us online at www.compassaffordablehousing.org. Thank you again to my co-host Lydia and our wonderful guest Anne. We look forward to seeing y'all next week.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.